Hello, hello, hello. This is Red Army Capybara, or as some know me, Comrade Cappy. And today I wanted to talk about a myth. I wanted to talk about the myth of no religious freedom in the DPRK. I know we've all heard that the DPRK is irrational and crazy, and Kim Jong Un is a brutal dictator, and the people are brainwashed and severely oppressed and stuff like that. There's this idea that they have no religion, no religious freedom, and that religious people are persecuted. But what if I told you that the idea that you have of religion in the DPRK is utterly distorted and manipulated by Western media? So let's just dive right into it. Let's talk about religion in the DPRK. Before we begin, I think that there is a vital fact we have to bear in mind when we're discussing this topic, and that's that during the Korean War, U.S. forces dropped 635,000 tons of bombs, including 32,557 tons of napalm on the DPRK, killing 20% of the population. This devastating atrocity left virtually no village, town, or city untouched, and at least 7,491 buildings for religious services were decimated during the war. And something I find quite striking is that the people who accuse the DPRK of oppressing religious people, the ones who want you to believe that the most, are the same ones who massacred them and destroyed their places of worship just 75 years ago. So considering the above information, one can imagine how much work had to be done to rebuild religious centers all throughout the country. However, according to the Swedish travel agency Korea Consul, as of 2007, the DPRK was home to 800 Chandoist churches, 60 Buddhist temples, and at least 5 Christian churches, including 3 Protestant, 1 Catholic, and 1 Russian Orthodox. The 5 Christian churches are all in Pyongyang, which had the highest concentration of Christians before the Korean War. There's also a college for training Buddhist clergy and an academy for Buddhist studies, and even more than that. Pyongyang is also home to a mosque, which I assume is mainly used by Islamic diplomats and expats, but I've never seen any evidence that North Koreans couldn't attend if they'd like to. And aside from places of worship and churches, there are various religious associations and federations in the country, such as the Korea Buddhist Federation, the Korean Federation of Christians, the Korean Orthodox Committee, among others, and all of these groups are part of the Korean Council of Religionists. Now, it should be noted that the population of the DPRK is mostly irreligious, but the 2 most common religions in the country are Chandoism and Korean shamanism, both of which are indigenous to Korea. The Chandoists even have their own political party called the Chandoist Changgu Party. This party also holds seats in the Supreme People's Assembly, which is the highest organ of state power in the country. Now, all of the activities and functions of the various religious organizations in the country are constitutionally guaranteed and protected. Article 68 of the Constitution of the DPRK states, I quote, "Citizens have freedom of religious belief. This right is granted through the approval of the construction of religious buildings and the holding of religious ceremonies. Religion must not be used as a pretext for drawing in foreign forces or for harming the state or social order." Now, with all of that said, there's still a few common claims that are easily disproven with a brief investigation, and I'd like to go over a few of those. The first one is that religious people can't join the Workers' Party of Korea. This is completely incorrect. For example, Kang Rang-uk, who served as Secretary of the Supreme People's Assembly and Vice President of the DPRK in the 1970s, was also a Presbyterian minister and chairman of the Korean Christian Federation. And his son, Kang Yong-sop, served as a Supreme People's Assembly delegate and vice chair of the Pan-Korean Alliance for Reunification. He was also on the Central Committee of the Korean Christian Federation, vice president of the Korean Council of Religionists, and director of the Pyongyang Theological Academy. Now, many people are also unaware that Kim Il-sung himself came from a Christian family. On page 221 of Roland Bauer's book, Red Theology on the Christian Communist Tradition, he discusses Kim Il-sung's interpretation of Marx's statement that religion is the opium of the people. I quote, "On 2 occasions, Kim has an opportunity to reflect on this statement, both in reply to comrades who object to working with a religious group, one of them the Chonbol-gyo, and the other Chandoism. On the first occasion, Kim argues that one is mistaken if one thinks that the proposition concerning opium can be applied in all cases. If a religion prays for dealing out divine punishment to Japan and blessing the Korean nation, then it is a patriotic religion, and all the believers in this religion are patriots. On the second occasion, he offers a slightly different interpretation. Now Marx's definition must not be construed radically and unilaterally. For Kim, Marx was warning against the temptation of a religious mirage and was not opposing believers in general. The upshot is that the communist movement should welcome and join hands with any patriotic religionist. With that said, the second claim is that you can't have a Bible in the DPRK. This claim is often repeated by Western media outlets and Christian organizations, but it's far from the truth. As Roland Bauer explains on page 232 of the book I just mentioned, the Pyongyang Theological College is responsible for publishing Bibles. So yeah, Bibles do exist in the DPRK, and this claim can easily be disproven with images like this one and this one. So yeah, obviously, people in the DPRK have Bibles. Now the third claim is that North Koreans don't have knowledge of Jesus, and this claim can be seen in defector testimonies and from Christian websites like Global Christian Relief. One prominent example is defector Yeonmi Park, who wrote in one of her books, I quote, "When we arrived, my mother and I had never heard of Jesus Christ." Now, before addressing Yeonmi Park's claim directly, it's important to note that she is affiliated with multiple right-wing think tanks and receives funding from the Atlas Network. The Atlas Network is affiliated with the National Endowment for Democracy, which is a U.S. congressionally funded organization whose founder, Alan Weinstein, openly stated, I quote, "A lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA." So putting that aside, the claim itself is demonstrably false. It can also be debunked by, guess what? Looking at pictures. And there you have it. There's Jesus, the same Jesus that's probably in your church. So anyway, despite the country being largely irreligious, religion is constitutionally protected, and there's a variety of religious institutions and associations. The common claims we hear regarding this topic are demonstrably false. So hopefully this helps some people get a better understanding of the DPRK and move beyond the propaganda we hear so relentlessly in the West. Now, with all of that said, I'm Red Army Capybara. Thank you for joining us. This is my first long-form video, so it may not be the best, but hopefully I get better at it as we go along. So, thanks for watching.